Welcome to I Am Goddess Collective podcast, a sacred space for empowerment through modern magic, spiritual activism, and reclaiming your power. I am your host, Nixie Marie, feng shui practitioner, earth activist, and mystic, here to support and inspire your journey in becoming the change you wish to see in this world. That change starts within. Join myself and fellow thought leaders, metaphysical experts, and luminaries each week as we explore practical and magical ways to living in your highest alignment. Your journey as an empowered goddess begins here. Let's dive in. Hello, lovely sisters. Welcome back to this lovely podcast. Whew. Taking so many deep breaths with you right now. This is actually my first time in the studio since the recent outbreak of what's going on right now. And I actually feel so honored and so grateful to have this platform right now to be able to connect with you guys and to just for myself, like to get into a creative space and activate my voice and be able to speak to this whole entire experience that we are literally all in together. So, it feels really good. I felt really called to also actually push this recent interview that I just did with a beautiful goddess to today because it's relevant, and we talked a lot about what's going on and how to sort of navigate this. And I thought it was perfect. I'm like, you know what, this just needs to be out. And so I interviewed Flora Bowley, and she is an artist, author, and gentle guide whose soulful approach to the creative process has really touched so many lives, including mine, throughout this interview. And my intention, of course, is that it touches yours. And so she really anchored in a beautiful conversation about how we can tap into our creativity during change, during times of stagnation, pause, learning to navigate times of patience, and really how the creative process in painting is very similar to the process that we're all going through right now as a collective. So it just felt so good to have this conversation. And, you know, there's so much that I've been processing since all this change, because it was like 1 week, you know, everything was as it was, you know, going and navigating through daily life. And then all of a sudden, boom, like we're in quarantine and we are being invited to stay home and do a whole new thing, which is learning how to be and learning how to go inward and learning how to connect with our loved ones, the ones that we don't often see all the time. My partner's working from home, and so we're navigating through all that, and it's been so beautiful. And it's just been, which you guys know, Cameron, and I also just like feel so much right now. So I think that it's really important to navigate the feelings and process everything and know that taking a break from everything is absolutely okay for so many of us. I mean, and if you're listening to the podcast, you probably are an empath. You're probably sensitive. You've been on the healing journey for a minute now. And if you haven't, you know, welcome to welcome to this world. And I have to say, you know, it's heavy. Like when you really look out at what's happening, how people are reacting, how people are responding. And, you know, if you're one of those people who have been coming from a place of fear and feeling afraid and feeling scared, I do want to just address that it's okay to feel those feelings. It's okay. And we talk about that in the show today and in this episode, because we really want to realize that, you know, the feelings that we're meant to feel throughout this process is new to all of us. Like, we've not gone through this before. Nobody has. So we're all literally in this together, and we couldn't be more in this together. And while some places of the world are more restricted, and, you know, you might be in one of those areas, and So what better to do than, I don't know, get creative and be resourceful and take time to use what you have. Like, take this opportunity if you can to get the projects done that you haven't done and make space for the new that's coming in. And because we're in this time of uncertainty, so we really don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. I mean, I'm recording this a week from when it's going to air. So from that, I don't even know where we'll be. But I really feel like now is a beautiful time to just be in the present moment. And we're relearning how to do that. And so before we, get into this episode, I would, of course, love to pull a card from the moon deck. And I am actually not surprised at all with the card that I pulled, because it's so fitting for not only this conversation, but how to probably navigate when we feel the fears and we feel the anxiety and we feel worried and we start to really tap into what the collective is feeling. And so I'm pulling from the moon deck. This is a deck that the moon deck is our latest sponsors for the podcast. So thank you guys so much for supporting the show. They're offering all of the listeners here 10% off. So if you go on over to themoondeck.com/goddess, you can get your own moon deck, or even there's some courses there. She's got some workshops and a ritual candle, some other things on the shop. So it's really cute. But the card that I pulled, are you guys ready? I got the play card. Play is my pathway to joy. And that's the message on the card. Play is my pathway to joy. And there's a beautiful woman who's sort of laying on this crescent moon, and she's kind of like an acrobat, like opening her arms and her hair is flowing down, and she's just sort of in this state of complete bliss and freedom and clearly in her joy. So I think that's pretty fitting for where we should remember to be in these times, and to remember to tap into our joy and really honor our playful essence right now. If you are home with your kids, I've seen so many, we talk about this on the show, I've seen a lot of videos come out, getting creative with your kids, like while they're home. And I've seen yoga videos, I've seen dancing videos. And I think that that's so cute, because it allows us to get back into our inner child and in our joy. And ultimately, connecting to our joy right now is so crucial, because it's really easy to get lost in what the media is saying, the uncertainty, the unknown. And being in the moment, being in our joy is a state in which we've got to relearn and tap into right now. So I think the cards booklet here, I'm just going to read because it's so perfect. And inside the book, it says, many of us could use more playtime in our lives. If we march through our days being too serious, we dampen our joy, which is vital to our beauty and feminine nature. Now is the time to embrace your playful innocence. Give permission to live fully in pursuit of what makes you feel joyful. The moments when you struggle with play or joy are opportunities to feel what is really going on inside. Notice your tendencies to tighten up, then wholeheartedly invite blissful joy into every cell of your being. You have an unlimited capacity to receive and express this lighter energy. So enjoy the pleasures of life without guilt, compromise, or excuses. Allow curiosity to fill your eyes with wonder. Be like a child playing in the sand with no fear of the waves sweeping away your castle. Over time, a happier outlook will become your home base. Play more and dazzle the world with your charm. So there's a really cute ritual in here, and it's called Lady's Choice. So this ritual involves, this is your chance to be lighthearted and playful as you create your own joy ritual. So take a moment to remember something you loved doing when you were a child. You can write about it in your journal or simply contemplate the memory. Then get into the space of being a carefree, whimsical child and turn this inner spark on again. So here's some ideas. Sing your favorite songs from a childhood or make up your own songs. Pretend you're playing with face paint or makeup for the first time. Oh gosh, that would be fun. We'd end up looking like clowns maybe, which is so adorable. Aimlessly swing on a swing, going as high as you possibly can. Say yes to an exciting adventure you've been thinking about. go outside and flip flop around doing cartwheels and handstands. And maybe another one, getting creative and playing with paints, which is what we're going to talk about on this episode today. So what a perfect card to start the show. That is again by the Moon deck. And I love, love, love this deck so much. And I'm just thinking it's so divine and perfect. That card is so perfect for us right now. And just know that I love you and I hold you all in my cradle of prayers every night as I go to bed and in the morning when I say what I'm grateful for. I am so grateful for you guys and goddesses. And in honor of that too, of the times right now, I am going to be offering a month-long free trial inside the Goddess Life membership. So there's so much in there right now. I mean, there's a year worth of resources at this point, meditations, videos. There's so much there that I thought, you know what, now is a perfect time to get into that place and to find something if you just need, some support. We do weekly Zoom calls right now. We're actually doing our first Zoom, which is this Friday. So I'm pre-recording right now, but next Friday, the week of this podcast being aired, I will be doing another Zoom. So we're doing live Zooms on the theme of each week. We're gathering in a sister circle and I really just felt called. So we're kind of shifting it up. Usually I do like pre-recorded and blast them out and every single week, but I'm feeling very called to connect with you all right now. So with that, every Friday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be going live in Zoom and you can sign up for those at iamgoddesscollective.com and / I believe, membership is what it is. And so inside there, you can just sign up for the Goddess Life membership and you get a month-long free trial. You can cancel at any time. So that's going to be my little offering for you guys as we navigate through this. Of course, I'm always here. You can send me an email, send me a DM on Instagram, I am Goddess Collective Podcast, or my personal Instagram, Nixie_Marie _. And just remember that we're not in this alone. We're in this together. We're all feeling everything together. So remember, you have that support and you are loved and you are safe and you are whole. And I love you so much. So let's dive into this episode with the lovely Flora Bowley. And you guys are going to love her. She's such a divine, beautiful, beautiful woman. And I can't wait for you guys to meet her. So I'll see you on the other side. Hello, beautiful sisters. Welcome back to another episode of I Am Goddess Collective podcast. Very honored and excited to be sitting with a dear sister in front of me right now, virtually, of course, but I've got the lovely Flora Bowley on the show today, who is a magical, beautiful painter and artist, and I'm so excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
You are actually the second woman, soul sister, that I have interviewed on the show that is in the creative arts. And I can't believe we're like right now, like up until now, finally getting to a place where some sisters are coming on and they're like embodying that creative energy. So welcome. I can't wait to dive in and see what we get into today.
Yay. Let's do it.
So for those of you guys that want a little background on this lovely lady, she is a painter, creative pioneer, retreat facilitator, and author of 2 top-selling books, Brave Intuitive Painting and Creative Revolution. Flora believes creative expression is both a birthright and also a powerful path to holistic well-being. Her upcoming book, The Art of Aliveness, will be released early next year. Amazing. That is so, so awesome. I'm just gonna... So welcome, Flora. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
When we're recording this, it's kind of hard to not address what's at stake. Like, we just kind of grounded ourselves on, what's currently going on. We're recording this during the intensity of this coronavirus outbreak. And so, we were just kind of discussing like where we're both at. You're in Oregon, right? Whereabouts in Oregon are you?
I live in Portland.
Okay. I've heard so many amazing things about Portland. I know we have some amazing sisters that live out there too. So They're probably excited. Shout out to Portland sisters.
Portland.
Yeah, but times are a little heavy right now. And I think we were both just saying, how important it is to be the light and show up in a creative, beautiful way. So a little bit about, what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about the current times? And how are you shedding your light right now?
Yeah, well, I'll be the first to just say that I don't have, any answers that are definitive in this moment. I think we're all very much in a state of, living day by day and just allowing our nervous systems to even try to keep up with the influx of information that's coming in. So it's a very unusual time, to say the least. But I will say it's prompted a lot of reflection over here on the work that I do in the world. And in many ways, it feels more relevant than ever before, which is quite interesting. As you mentioned, I'm writing a book right now called The Art of Aliveness. So that's that's a really interesting thing to be doing. And I'm deep in the middle of it right now.
Oh, wow.
So I've actually just taken the week off of writing because I like many of us, I think we've just we're just, like I said, we're just getting used to what's happening in this new reality. But, I teach intuitive painting and creativity in general. And I've always sort of brought in a lot of soul work and personal transformation work into that process, and really just using the painting process as a vehicle for all of that. And some of the big themes that I share in the process are around being open to change, allowing change, really, embracing spontaneity and improvisation, and just this idea that when we allow things to change, there's movement and there's fluidity and there's new birth that happens. When you're willing to let go of what's no longer working or serving or happening in the world, then you kind of make space for something else to occur. And so obviously in this moment that we find ourselves in, it's like, wow, this is really relevant. So much of what I've been sharing for the last decade is really feeling like I'm seeing it come to life in this different way. I also just feel like creativity is something that is so soothing to our souls, in whether it's painting or drawing or knitting or dancing or writing or anything that gets us in motion in a way where we're sort of creating something out of nothing. I think it's a very empowering act in many ways, and also very grounding, and kind of brings us into a space of receptivity. And so it's also something we can do at home, which is really beautiful.
Yeah.
And one of my big messages always, it has been around kind of deconstructing this idea of only certain people get to be artists, like with a capital A. I think we're really moving out of that paradigm, but we're still kind of in it, where a lot of people are just, they think like, oh, I can't draw, or I can't do that. And I feel like one of my missions in this lifetime has been to just sort of say, yeah, you can, because you're a human. You were born with that capacity to flex those muscles, and maybe you haven't flexed them yet, but they're definitely a part of what we all come in with. And so, just kind of taking the pressure off things having to be amazing or professional or any of that, and really embracing creativity for the purpose of just self-care, really, and nurturing us in different ways. So that feels super relevant right now. And I'm excited to hopefully have this be an opening eventually, that I already see it happening, where people are getting creative in their quarantine world. I'm like loving these little videos that I'm seeing, and like people are just having time, right? They're having time.
Yes.
And that's something that so often in regular life, quote unquote, we don't feel like we have. And so suddenly we're sort of home, and what do we have? We have whatever's around us, and we have our creativity. And so, looking for those silver linings in such a tragedy that's unfolding, I feel like that's one of them,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely touched on a lot of different points there. I think that now is such a great invitation to tap into your creative essence. And especially we have a mostly female audience here. And I think that we as women are such innately creative beings. And in some way, shape, or form, there is a stigma around what an artist looks like or what a creative looks like. And I would love to hear, how you have really allowed for, and support people on breaking through those stigmas, because I think that's going to really help support someone who's, stuck at home and they're like, I don't even know where to begin, but I think there's like a natural flow there. So, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so many thoughts. Well, for one thing, I think a lot of us have experienced a creative wound of some sort. So whether that was like a teacher telling you weren't creative, or a parent, or whatever it was, I think it's really, I just kind of want to say it's okay if you feel that way. If you're sort of a person who's like never gone down that road, like it's totally understandable. We don't really live in a society that supports necessarily people to be creative. I know here in Portland, there's a real lack of like arts education in the public schools and things like that. So, I also believe it's never too late in our lives to I think of it as like remembering our creativity, because most of us had it at some point intact when we were younger. And so, no matter what age you are now, it's still there for you. And so really the intention that I bring forward in my teaching is to give people enough of a container, like enough instruction and sort of structure to move within, but then to really emphasize that there's no right way to do it in terms of what I offer, which is intuitive painting. So there's no step-by-step, there's no really like way you can screw up. There's no mistakes. That's one of my mantras that I'm like always saying, like there's no mistakes, what I offer is a layering process with acrylic paint. It's one of the things that we do. And so what's inherent when you're layering colors and marks and things onto a painting is that you can change your mind, you can turn the painting upside down, you can, I often get people painting with their eyes closed. So just this idea of, the freedom is really the driving force behind what we're doing. I think for a lot of people, they have this idea around making a piece of visual art where it's like, okay, I have to have a concept, I need to have the technique, and then I need to execute. And so really breaking down that idea and instead saying, well, what if you just emptied out your expectations? Or what if you just let go of the need to have any kind of plan and just showed up with sort of an openness to what wants to happen in the moment? And then allow it to express in a really natural way. So that's often why I start people with their eyes closed, because that immediately puts them in a feeling space rather than a thinking space, because it's amazing how much our just like brains and our overthinking will just get right in the way of creativity. Right. So it's like a lot of what I do is about trying to get people in their bodies. I do a lot of movement and breathing and, meditation and things to kind of get us in that space. But then really, like I said, emphasizing this idea that there's no way to do this wrong.
Yeah.
And your way is the right way. So yeah, I have a lot of online courses that kind of give people different ways in. Some of them really focus on like, what can you do at your kitchen table that just requires even just like a pen and paper or a basic watercolor set, that kind of thing. And that whole curriculum really honestly came out of my own sense of not always feeling up for going into my studio and painting like a big acrylic painting on canvas, which is kind of what I usually do.
Right.
I went through a period of, I lost my mom, and like a lot of things were going on in my own life. And I just found myself like not painting in the way, that I used to. And so
Right.
I started setting up I had a little table in my bedroom, and I would just like paint these tiny little paintings in different ways. And it became so therapeutic, and it felt so different than the big acrylic paintings. So then I realized, wow, there's probably a whole lot of people that would find this way more doable than getting a big canvas and paint, even though I love that too. And that's like a whole nother kind of therapy. There's so much that we can do that's super simple and really not complicated, like not material heavy and not technique heavy and all of that. And I think oftentimes the simpler the thing, the more profound it can actually be.
Right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that you kind of have this really easy sort of approach to it. It's like, it's an intimidating process, I think, to really put yourself on a piece of canvas, or just expose yourself in a way where, to me, creativity and art is really a way that we tap into our highest selves. And we see visions that, are from this source that is without words. And you kind of, it seems like you find like a really easy path for people to discover that. And yes. I think that's so important right now, because the message I keep getting right now is like, how do we go within? How do we grow? How do we tap back inward to our subconscious? How do we get into those places that often show up in fear? And I think fear is such a big thing that's permeating in the collective. And how would you say that creativity actually supports and aids people work through fear?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I feel like one thing that I really appreciate about visual art is that it is tangible. Like it's this actual thing, whereas a lot of modalities might not be so tangible in terms of personal growth work. And so while there can be that fear, like you mentioned, of like, oh my gosh, it's this piece of canvas and I'm going to be exposed if I put myself on there, right? Mm-hmm. That's also the beauty of it, is that it's there as sort of a reflection. And so I think of creativity as a presence practice in a lot of ways. Like it's calling us into, over and over again, it's calling us into the present moment. And it's giving us this incredible opportunity to choose again, just like meditation, right? You get to choose again, and then you get to choose again. You get to listen to your intuition. What am I feeling called to do right now? What am I craving, right? And then you do that thing. So maybe that's adding blue, or putting a figure in, or turning the canvas on its side. And then you get to reevaluate. So coming again back to the present moment, because whatever you just did changed everything. When you change something on the painting, it changes everything. And so you get to go, okay, now what? And I have a phrase I really love to offer folks, and that's just working with what's working. And so, take a look at the painting, and instead of feeling this need to figure it all out, or to have this master plan, or to be like in control in that way that we like to be, instead just ask yourself, well, what's working? And it might just be like 1 square inch, or like one little element or a color. But I always think there's something that can be working, right? I mean, even and this is such a metaphor for life, it's like, even if things have totally hit the fan like they have right now, it's like looking at our lives and going, well, what's actually working? Like for me, I'm getting to spend a lot more time walking my dog, So I'm like, that's working. I'm going to keep doing that. So in the painting, it's like, work with what's working, and allow yourself to slowly, baby step by baby step, make those micro decisions that lead you forward. And eventually things come together. And there's a really big piece around patience when you're making art, because there's no formula, and there's no like, do this, and then you'll have that kind of thing. unless you're, I guess, doing like a paint by numbers situation or something, but that's sort of the opposite of what I do.
Yeah.
So in that sort of intuitive art making space, there's no formula around how long it's going to take or the twists and turns it's going to go through before you get there to a place where you're like happy with it. And I think that is such rich territory for this metaphor between painting and life, which is really what I'm most interested in, is how we can use the creative process as a way to learn about living. And there's so many, I mean, that's pretty much what my whole book is about, right? The new book is just all of the different ways that they inform each other. And I'm pretty much endlessly fascinated with that. So yeah, if anything, I just want to like offer permission for people to let go of the need to know how to do it or to have experience or any of that, and just to remember that this is something you get to do as a human. And there's even just, pulling out a piece of paper, I'll just offer a really simple exercise maybe people
Absolutely,
could do
yes.
at home in their quarantine lives. This is really, really basic one. But so you just take a piece of paper and a pen or marker, whatever you have, and you divide your paper into like 6 squares. So you can kind of like do a line across and then a couple lines. And then you just choose a shape. So it could be as simple as a circle. And then you put that circle in each of the boxes. And I call this visual riffing. So the idea is that you give yourself 6 little opportunities to just riff in different ways. And so you could take a circle and you could fill in the circle, you could fill in the space around the circle, you could add designs, you could add words, you could add more circles. Like, it's pretty endless. But it just it's very simple and doable. And it also just allows you to go, okay, I tried that. Now I'm going to try this. Oh, and now I feel inspired to try this. So that's a fun one. Kids love that one too.
Yeah.
Another way to do that same idea is to take a word. So for example, you could take like nature, and then in each of the 6 boxes, or however many boxes you have, you could draw something that represents nature to you. And then you could do that with whatever words you want. So just that super simple act of like pen on paper, I think allows us to, especially right now, allows us to put whatever is running through our bodies, like whatever emotions, anxiety, feelings, thoughts. I always think of art as like giving us a place to put it, because
that's so well said. Yes.
Yeah, it comes out of us, Yeah. And so, I hope that, one of the beautiful things that might come of this is that everybody, or more, not everybody, but like people sort of have this time and space to pick up a pen or pick up a paintbrush or, start dancing in their house or whatever it looks like. I've been doing a lot of that.
I just posted a dance video on Instagram, so I'm
nice.
all about the dancing.
Yes, dancing so important right now.
Yeah, I mean, you really brought up a point though, that's like, in order to create, we've got to create movement. Like whether that be dancing or getting out the pen and paper and creating the swirls. And, how do you think that like our creative channel, when we tap into that, how do you think that gets activated when we start to like create that movement and decrease all the stagnation that's around us?
Well, I think it's always just right there for us. I feel like what we don't usually do is give it this time and space. And so, I mean, I teach workshops. And so I've worked with, probably 1,000 at least people in person at this point. And it is it's like my favorite thing to watch somebody come in and they're just feeling kind of stiff and insecure. And then they might say things like, well, I've never painted before. I feel really nervous and all of that. And then just to give them, like I said, like this little bit of structure, just enough, and watch how their whole being starts to awaken through this process of like color and movement. And when they really get that it can just keep changing, that I feel the channel just opens. It's like It's not that hard. It often happens on the very first layer of paint when I have them close their eyes and dance and finger paint, like suddenly the whole vibe in the room completely shifts because there's this playfulness really that so many people haven't accessed in that way for a really long time. And it's sensual. It's like very tactile. If I'm a big fan of music, so I'm always playing, like putting together playlists and really, utilizing music to get people into different states of being with the painting. It's so healing. It's right there for us. We just have to do it.
Well, now seems like the perfect opportunity to share with you goddesses our newest sponsor, the Moon Deck. The Moon Deck is a beautiful oracle set that connects you to your intuition and brings self-care rituals into your daily life. Created to foster community and healing, this entire set of 44 cards, plus a beautiful guidebook filled with rituals, is inspired by the cycles of the moon and the empowerment of women. It shares insights on growth, purpose, practice, and emotional well-being. The Moon Deck can be worked with as an oracle guide, as a daily tool for reflection and meditation, or simply in a tarot-inspired spread. As a goddess listener, you receive 10% off the entire site, so head on over to themoondeck.com/goddess and enter code goddessmoon to receive your discount. Happy rituals and oracle card pulling, sisters. I love you. Sisters, I have been waking up with so much gratitude and appreciation, all thanks to my favorite app, Yoga Wake Up. Yoga Wake Up has been founded by two of the most amazing humans that I have ever met, and I am honored to be able to announce that they are our newest sponsors for the show. Yoga Wake Up is an audio-guided yoga and meditation app that takes away your beeping alarm clock and implements mindfulness and stretching and yoga into your day. It's only about 5 to 15 minutes long, and it can be replaced as your snooze button, because I know that personally my man loves to press snooze and it definitely messes with my sleep cycle. So we've invited Yoga Wake Up into our morning routine because it truly has had the impact to change our morning and implement this beautiful ritual to have intention to start the day. Instead of scrolling on social media, which you all know we're pretty guilty of in one way, shape, or form, and instead empower you to get ready for the day, have courage, have confidence, have charisma to take on whatever comes your way. Head on over to yogawakeup.com/goddess to get 25% off as a Goddess Nation listener. We got off on an interesting start because of everything that's going on. But normally I'm like, okay, what's your story? Like, how did you even, get started? And here we are. And I'm curious, like, what had you really tap into this as your profession and as your craft? And did you have like a really profound awakening into all this? Or was it just a knowingness that you were going to be this, and here you are and showing up as an artist? Like, what was that process like for you?
Well, I feel like I've had a couple of careers, honestly, at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely one of those people that always did art. So that was like my thing when I was little, and it's what I went to college for. And even though when I was in college, I never thought I could be an artist. I thought I would do graphic design or something that was arts related. But just that idea of being a painter just didn't seem attainable or a way that I could really make money. So when I started selling paintings, it was kind of a light bulb. It was one of those like, oh, wow, maybe I could make some money doing this. So for a lot of years, probably like 15 years, I worked really hard to become a professional painter. Meanwhile, I was needing to make money. And so I became a yoga teacher and a massage therapist. And I've just always been, I'm sure like you, I know we just met, but I'm like, I know you're like this too. Like, I've just always been a seeker, and I've always been like can't get enough of like just personal inquiry and like,
Yeah.
how can I show up in a good way here on planet Earth? And so,
The path of self-discovery.
exactly.
It is a journey. It
It
never
is.
ends.
That's what I was going to say. It never ends. Um, so, so yeah, so the interesting thing that happened for me though, is that after all these years of trying to become a professional painter, I did become that. And a couple years into that, I realized, gosh, I thought this was my dream job, but it's really isolating. And I feel like there's like some big piece missing for me because I love people, I love community and all these, what we've been talking about. And so a friend of mine suggested, well, why don't you teach painting? And it had never crossed my mind until then. And that was about 10 years ago. And so, I mean, it was within an hour of teaching my first workshop that I just realized, oh, this is my jam. Like, this is where all the parts of me get to come together in the same room. Which was so when you said, like, did you know this was the path you were on? It was like, no.
Yeah.
I just was always for many years consistently moving towards and learning about the things that felt authentically interesting to me. So that was, for me, that was movement, that was meditation, that was art, that was music, community, poetry. And then when I taught my first class, I did all those things. I just thought, well, of course we're going to start with yoga because that makes sense to me.
Totally.
But then I got in this, and I think it's more common now to see these kinds of
like all the modalities kind of coming together.
Yes,
yeah, it's like a ceremony.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But in 2010, I think it wasn't like what I was doing was a bit different in terms of being in that visual art workshop world and bringing in all of these pieces. And so people really responded to it. And it just really became clear to me that that's what my passion was to actually help other people remember about these parts of themselves. Because I've always done art. Like, that's never been an edge for me, really.
Totally.
Yeah. So I get great joy in being a guide for other people in that way. I still love to paint myself, but it's much less interesting to me at this point than bringing people together and doing that with them. So yeah, it's been, I was actually asked when I taught my very first workshop, there was like an author scout at the place I was teaching. And so it was 1 week after I taught that workshop that I got asked to write my first book. And so it was very much a whirlwind of a experience where suddenly I was teaching all over the place and writing this book. And, shortly after that, making my first online course. And it all just felt like, oh, this all aligned in this really cool way. But I never could have predicted how it came together like that. So,
wow. That's totally amazing. I love how it's like every time I ask, those questions too, I often love hearing just how none of us really know, it's a journey of, like we said, it never ends. And I'm sure your process will evolve, from here in this moment as it is now. And I think that's a really important reminder, even in these times of change and uncertainty. And you kind of addressed earlier on patience and what was the best tool that you had to really invite that patience within yourself and to trust the process?
Well, my 15 years of intuitive painting, that has really, I've been asked the question, who's your biggest teacher or something? And it's my painting process. It's like showing up canvas after canvas and stepping into the absolute mystery of intuitive painting, where I never know what the painting's going to look like. And there's so many moments where it's uncertain and it can get really ugly and chaotic, but yet it always comes together eventually. And I really think that's the only difference between, a new painter versus an experienced painter, is that we all get stuck and we all hit these points where it's just absolutely crap, And the difference is that an experienced person who's done it a bunch before has gotten through that a bunch of times to a new place. And so we don't let that stop us. Whereas someone who's new to anything, it's like if the frustration really sets in, that can be a time to just get frustrated and walk away. And so I think for me, when I hit that place in my career where I realized, oh, this thing isn't actually the dream I thought it was going to be, it was uncomfortable because I didn't know what the thing was. I really had no idea what needed to shift, but I was able to sit in the unknowing. And I really feel like that's so true for me right now in this moment we're in too, is that this is like super uncomfortable, right? Like we do not know what this means for any of us. And yet, not to say that I'm not feeling anxious, because I am, like we all are on some level, but I also, I've been in this, it's almost like I exist in this place of unknowing so often in my work that I've almost gotten like comfortable there to a certain degree. And I also realized that, and obviously these are very different things we're talking about, the state of the world versus like a painting, but I've come to this place over and over again where when things get like, when I'm having a major moment of not knowing, there's often a really big breakthrough, like right on the other side of that.
Yeah.
It's just happens again and again where I'm like, the worse it gets almost, the bigger the breakthrough is. Versus if I'm just going through the motions and and I'm not really pushing my edges, I'm kind of doing what's always been comfortable and what I know will work out. Those are, first of all, not my best paintings. And those are also not the paintings that I have breakthroughs or big learning experiences in. They're just sort of like a little more predictable, I guess. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just hoping for that big breakthrough on a global level right now, that this is going to shake things up in a way that ultimately is a healing for everybody and in different ways. So
I can't imagine it not doing that. However, I think it's already working its magic in that way. However, it's so, again, back to the uncertainty. And I really love how you brought that into painting and like how the process of painting is like messy and it's uncertain and you don't know the end result. And yet through some of your work, you've found like some huge breakthroughs. Like, tell me a little bit about some of those things that you've experienced when you've had those blocks and you can't move forward. And then all of a sudden you're like, aha, and it all comes through. Like, what has been some that you like on a profound level remember?
Well, there's something that I talk about a lot with my students, and I call it the banks of the river. And it's this idea that in the creative process, one of the beautiful things about the creative process is that anything's possible in any given moment. It's like a free for all. Yet that freedom can become really overwhelming, right? That idea of like, I mean, I'm sure that's partly what we're feeling right now as a collective is anything's possible and we don't know what's going to happen, right? And so when people get to that place and when I get to that place in my process, one of the things I do is I give myself what I call the banks of the river. And that basically just means I narrow down my options. And so a bank could be, I'm going to only work with blue for the next 5 minutes, or I'm going to only use my fingers, or I'm going to use this kind of brush, or I'm going to work with this kind of image or this kind of tool, or I'm going to close my eyes again, or whatever it is. It's like, give yourself some like structure. And then within that structure, it's so much easier to be free again because everything's not available to you. And so for me, that often leads to some kind of breakthrough because it's like, I'm like drilling a little deeper into whatever it is, whatever those banks of the river are. It's like, I'm really kind of learning about them in a way. So that's one thing. I also just, when we're in a place where things aren't working, what needs to happen is something needs to change. We can't just keep doing the same things in the same ways,
right? Because
then you're just going to end up in the same place. And so I often see that, especially with new painters that come into my workshops, they kind of find their couple tricks or their ways that they hold the paintbrush or the colors that they really love. And then they just stay there because it's like a known entity. But what can happen is that it becomes stagnant or they're just like, oh, this is like, they're not loving it. And it's like, well, what would happen if you used a totally different color, maybe an opposite color to what you've been using. Or if I'm a big fan of turning the canvas upside down, because that's like changes everything in an instant, right?
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. So making change and just like, again, sticking with it, because those are the moments that you have to just keep going. I also, something that I do is that I work on more than one painting at a time. So that's partly because the layers have to dry. So it's like a logistical thing,
yes.
but also it's incredibly helpful for perspective. And so if I'm painting along and I start to feel really frustrated and I don't know what to do next, sometimes the answer is put the painting aside, step away from the painting, and then grab the other painting and work on that one for a while. And then almost always when I come back to the original one and I step back and I kind of relax my body and I take a look, I see something, it's like I'm seeing it in a whole new way that I was not able to see it when I was so close to it. And I think that happens in life. We get so close to our habits and our comforts and all of that oftentimes what we need is a little bit of disruption. Sometimes it's forced on us, like right now. But I think, one thing I've been talking to a lot of my friends in the last week about what's happening, and is this, my friend the other day on a Zoom call just said, people are going to have to just come to terms with the fact that it's like life's never going to be the same again. And I think we're in this place right now. This is just my 2 cents, is that we're all in different ways kind of grasping for how it was like last week. Of course we are. It was just last week. And so we're still wanting things to be how they were. And the reality of what's happening is that it's never going to be the same as it was. And that's something that has never happened on a global scale, at least not anytime recently, maybe back when there was like, I don't know, dinosaurs and things, but, and so I think we're just, but when the way that she said it was like, so actually gave me a lot of hope in that it was this idea of like, we get to rebuild, we get to choose how we move forward. This is a massive shakeup, and to really kind of understand that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I mean, of course, there's going to be loss and like all the terrible things that are upon us here, but when we rise above, like sort of like the bigger bird's eye perspective, it's like we get to choose how we go forward from this. And that sometimes what we need is just this big disruption to really realize like what's important to me. I'm sure everybody's in that boat of kind of evaluating like, wait, who are my people and how have I been living my life, and what's really the most important thing? And these are actually really great questions to have, And so I don't know, I guess I'm just trying to look at the positive of what's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And the one thing I always come back to and remember during change is we get guaranteed pretty much one thing in life, and that is that change is inevitable. So, however, and this change it's so uncomfortable because it's forced. And most of the time it is forced. But, sometimes we choose to change things, and we choose, I don't want to sit down anymore. I want to stand. Or, I don't want to work with that color paint. I want to work with another one. Like, to me, that's a choice. But when we're forced into change, that is this change of uncertainty is to me, it's like this opportunity for growth, but also what's possible, what's on the other side of this, and my hope and my vision. And I think everyone listening and people I've talked to as well can agree that we anchor in this new paradigm, and we really stand for the change that we have been all wishing to see in the world, and, to be open to whatever happens and not expect to. There's like finding that balance, and I think that's really a challenging part of it all. But I think that's also like just painting it back to the creative aspect of things. Like, that is the creative process, and we are here to create. We're here to be creative beings. And I I hope that this, you know, you coming on too, especially during these times and bringing in the relevance of it, is that everybody listening can remember their creativity and remember that we're here to consciously create our reality. And here we are with this this blank canvas yet again.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I think it's so important to remember just like the what creativity in the biggest sense is thinking outside the box. You know, it's coming up with new solutions. And that's really what we're being asked to do right now. So time to flex those muscles.
Time to get resourceful. And yeah, absolutely. Like if I end up running out of toilet paper, you know, what would I do? And I was kind of getting into my creative mindset around that and thinking like, well, I guess I could like create wipes or something, or, you know, and I think that that's what these times are really inviting us to, is just like, okay, what do we use that we have already versus I need to go out and buy something and like deal with the madness.
Exactly. We're so used to just being able to get whatever we need at any moment. And this is forcing kind of a new reality, which then forces us to be creative. So
yeah. Amazon Prime, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. Not a thing.
Not really. No, it's been interesting to just like go online and realize like, oh, wow, I've got that like instant gratification sort of that's been perpetuated by like this whole thing that's available at any time. But I really think that it's important to support creatives, support artists, support small businesses right now, and to really lean on those individuals for the support that we're all looking to. I mean, it's like the way, you know, we already knew how to work in small environments back when we were like in tribal cultures, you know, and here we are in this massive world and we don't even know how to go back to that, you know, like we relied on every tribe member to bring each their roles, you know, and here you are, the creative one, like coming to bring us all of our creative workshops. Like, how do we use paint?
It's one of the things that I've just been appreciating so much just in the last few days is watching all these people bringing their medicine forth and offering, whether it's meditations or yoga classes or creativity things or singing online or, oh my gosh, like my friend is doing this whole new series of like food prep videos, and so much of it is being given for free or for a really low cost. And it's like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful thing to get to witness all these people and their gifts, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be offering, like a free virtual live stream creativity hangout tomorrow. I know this probably won't air by then, but the plan is to keep offering them over the coming months and just to give people a place to, like when you said people don't know what to do when it comes to creativity, like I want to just kind of be offering things like really simple exercises, ways to paint, ways to draw, and then bringing movement and things into it. So
That's amazing. So where can everybody sign up? Is there like a sign up form, or how can they get involved in that?
It's just on my website. So right now we have a banner on the homepage that takes people right there. But even the one like tomorrow we're doing the first live stream, but then that recorded version will just live there on the website. So people could check that out anytime. And I serendipitously am quarantined with my really dear friend, Emily McDowell, who is an incredible author and illustrator. And she just moved up here from LA like a week ago, like 9 days ago. And the plan was for her to be staying at my house for a little while. I was going to be in Morocco on my retreat. And all of a sudden we're in this moment and we're just, and it's so but this is so beautiful because I live alone otherwise. And so suddenly I have this buddy and she's an artist too. And so we've been brainstorming about like, well, what can we do? What can we do? And I'm like, well, you know what? I've got a studio in my backyard. I've got live streaming cameras and all of this stuff because I use that in my business. And I'm like, let's start offering creative hangouts for people. And it's given us something to just like create. As creatives, we're always happier when we're creating, right? So, so just even having this idea and putting it out there and like, you know, having a thing to do that feels positive and like something to offer that might be helpful has been, for me, really nourishing in a lot of ways. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. People just coming up with ways to share and to give. And yeah, thankfully we have all this wonderful virtual technology, through even just Facebook or Instagram Live, that people can just hop on there and connect and not be isolated right now.
It's interesting how we're sort of in that space of isolation, but also recognizing that we're all connected,
Yes.
like we're actually more connected than ever right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that that's a really interesting thing to digest and recognize and sit with and realize, like, you get to now hang out with more people because you're at home. And even though it's not maybe person to person, but it's like where you're gonna see someone like you, be online and get creative. When the heck did you have time for that? Like,
right? I know.
Never really. I mean, and I think it's interesting too, because I've kind of seen both sides of the story where, some people are home with their families and they've got their kids around. So they're working and they've got their kids. So there's a lot more work to do and there's more things happening. But I'm also seeing them get creative with their kids and they're like, let's do a video together, or they're like inviting them into this conversation. So I think there's so much being born right now. So much is dying, so much is being reborn. There's no synchronicity that spring equinox is just around the corner. Where it's all in divine timing. It's just really hard to digest, and it's again, I think it's also just to say and add to, and I'm sure you want to add to this too, is like it's okay to feel sad or afraid or scared, or feel into the fear for a moment, but recognize that those feelings go and like shift, and perhaps you can learn to shift with some of this lovely goddess's creative talents and gifts to teach you how to get into that.
Yeah. I think it's just really important to for everyone to remember that none of us know how to do this, and that there's no right way. And I actually made a post yesterday that was kind of along the lines of, there's so many ways to, like, quote, use this time wisely. You could be learning languages and writing your book and and like, you can also sit there and stare at the wall, or like eat chocolate and doodle, or, it's like to not, to not put, especially right now, it's like, we're just really getting used to this, and so if for anyone who might be like an overachiever type, who's like, oh my God, now I got to like do all this stuff because I have all this time. It's like, just to remember, like, maybe the thing you need to do is to just slow down, and that we're probably going to be here for a while. So you can do the things too at some point.
Yeah, that's really good medicine for me. I've actually been, I'm definitely one of those overachievers, and I have learned I'm like, how slow can I go today? That's sort of been this new thing I'm working with, because I know how to go fast and full speed ahead, but do I really know the other spectrum? How slow, how can I appreciate this process? Like how, stretching something out and realizing, what if I just get maybe one thing done today? And then go outside or just be and read a book. Like, that's okay right now, because it's enough. Yeah. It's a big one. It's a big one to learn. So I love that you said that, because I think
I feel you. I'm right there with you. Learning.
Yeah, but look at what it's inviting us to see and learn and be. And I did read. I've seen so many beautiful posts about like the positive side of this. And one of the ones that I really loved was from I think a native channeled message from a council from natives, and they said something like our humanity is learning how to get tapped into their yin energy, and we've been so yang. We know how to do things, but we don't really know how to be and be in stillness and be a human being, which is very interesting. So I
love that one too. It was the 13 indigenous grandmothers,
of course,
that came with that wisdom, and they were like, I think they said your great grandmothers knew how to do this.
Yeah,
and it's true, and so we're learning.
relearning, remembering, and getting creative in the process.
Yes.
So beautiful, sister. Well, thank you so much for coming on during these times and just taking a moment, even in my own day, to just, drop all the thoughts and the feelings and connect with you and share a very relevant topic and same type perspective. So for those that are looking to turn to you and get creative or follow your work and support you in your work, where can they find you?
My website is florabowley.com. It's Bowley, and then same name on Instagram and Facebook, pretty easy to find. So I would love for people to join the free gatherings, or if people feel like taking an online course, I put them all 50% off right now. So just want to make things as accessible as possible, and really invite folks to just lean into their creativity, even if this is the first time.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, my last question for you. What does it mean to you to be a goddess?
Good question. Well, I think it comes down ultimately to self-worth and to this kind of deep understanding that we're all here for a reason, and that we all have such beautiful gifts to share, and to really embody that and to step forward towards those gifts, and to use your time wisely here, and trust that you have everything you need.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. This was the highlight of my day.
Seriously, I knew I was like, I just can't wait for 4 p.m. because I really didn't do much today. And I was like, I'm okay with that, because if I just get my podcast done or just like a few other things, like it's all good, and I'm going to go slow. And so it's been an interesting shift, and I'm sure you guys are all feeling it, but it's been an honor. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, sisters. Well, I love you. I see you. I hear you. Bye for now. I'll see you next week. Bye.